And so I'm going to kind of turn now to facilitator mode and start to ask my fellow Stakeholder Advisory Committee members their impressions of the plan. And I'm going to start by asking each of you to just quickly give me a letter grade. What would your letter grade be for the master plan for aging? And then I'll come back to you and I'll give you a chance to explain your grade a little bit. But let's just start first with grades, and we'll start with Donna. What grade would you give the master plan? You're on mute, Donna.
I'm going to start with a B+.
Okay. Maya, what would your grade be?
Mine's B+.
All right. Susan, what would your grade be?
A-.
Oh.
And Peter, what would your grade be?
Well, I tend to grade on the curve, but I would say an A-. So.
Okay. All right, Donna, explain your B+.
I think because there's still room for growth, there are some areas and gaps that are still there that weren't fully realized that came out of the initial recommendations. Overall, I think that because it is a 10-year plan, we have to really look at the growth. And of course, with COVID, I think that some of the plan was scaled back, particularly in the area of long-term care services and supports. We're missing things around transportation, and I think that we could build stronger on the caregiving goal in terms of definitions.
Great, thanks, Donna. Maya, what about your B+?
Well, I'm a hard grader. I'll start there, but I think that on the plan is a wonderful framework, and I really love the fact that the cabinet took ownership of it, as you said, Kevin. I think many of our recommendations are reflected, and there are some real strong commitments in there for things that can't be done right away to do them for the long term. I guess the two areas I'm most concerned about, and Donna touched on this, was LTSS, long-term services and supports. I do like the fact that they kind of integrated that under Health Reimagined to bridge health and LTSS, but I think a little bit was lost under that too. And when you think back to one of our three highest priorities as a SAC was fixing long-term care and fixing LTSS, I think that's I think we have to bring the spotlight back on that in a much stronger way.
Great. So Susan, now we get to the easy graders. Maybe Susan with the A-.
So I chose A for Alzheimer's because, A- because it's unprecedented to have Alzheimer's named and visible in a report such as this anywhere in the nation. And Alzheimer's still, people with Alzheimer's and their families still suffer from under recognition and tremendous stigma. So just that single act of putting Alzheimer's prominently in the plan definitely deserves an A grade. The minus, I think, would be that, for those of us who worked on it, the major issues, the system change, the transformative work still needs to be done there. And I hope that a lot of these committees and groups that are formed and processes that will continue will give us that setting and that forum that we can really tackle some of the structural issues that we need to fix.
Thanks, Susan. So Peter, what about your A-?
I guess I'm one of the easier graders. So I'm in the A territory, I think, because of the breadth of the proposal, as you mentioned, Kevin, and the outline of the vision and the goals, even though they were transformed a bit from what came out of the stakeholder process. I think they got it right. I honestly think they hit almost all the boxes in terms of goals, whether it's initial steps on access to LTSS, housing stability, income stability, some things about caregiving, equity, and so forth. So I'm looking at it as a living, breathing document, not a static document. So I'm kind of looking at the vision, and that's what leads me to say an A, or close to an A. I think the faults, if any, or shortcomings are, I think as noted, is really not as ambitious maybe as it could be out of the gate. I think in the access to LTSS area, there's certainly a lot of things that are not incorporated as immediate goals, whether it's improving Medi-Cal eligibility, dealing with the asset limit, asset issues. You know, the LTSS benefit issue is sort of punted to the federal government. So I think in that sense, I would tend to maybe bring it down a tad. But overall, in terms of vision, I'm pretty impressed.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Peter. And I guess as moderator, I think I'm supposed to answer some of these questions too. So I'm going to cheat a little bit as moderator and say at my kids' school, they actually do split grading. So there's a grade for sort of study habits, then a grade for the actual substance. And I think the plan gets an A+ on the study habits side. The amount of engagement, the working through, you know, taking time to pivot to the COVID crisis, and then also continuing with the plan, and just the amount of effort that went into this at the stakeholder level and the cabinet level, and that Kim McCoy-Wade did at CDA. So there's an A+ for the kind of study habits, and I think I'm in the B to B+ range for many of the same reasons that others identified, that we've got a great framework here, but there's still a lot of detail to be filled in, and especially work that's both very specific and targeted, and then also continuing to do the work on the big picture, the kind of big ticket items, both in cost and impact.